Welcome to Field Talk, a Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Join our host, Wallace Curry, as he explores the stories from Monitor Farm networks on how farmers have adapted their businesses, with support from specialists and experts, to assess farm performance and explore opportunities. Monitor Farm Scotland is farmer-led, farmer-driven, encouraging discussion and solution-based thinking.
Welcome everyone to a new series. This series aims to showcase the 9 Monitor farmers and their management groups, their stories, motivations and the role they play in influencing change within Scottish agriculture. The podcast is going to highlight how these individuals navigate their own farming systems while supporting innovation and resilience across the sector. There's a few main core themes. First off, human stories behind the programme. So who are the management members and how they're integral to the programme? Also, what drives them to take part in such a thing? Secondly, we're looking at influencing change and how the management group shape decisions and encourage adoption of new ideas, as well as examples of successful interventions or mindset shifts. Thirdly, we're looking at navigating their own systems. So how do members utilise what they learn at home? Also the challenges they face in their own farm, and then how you can balance both tradition, so keeping it as it always has been, but also with innovation. And then finally, we're looking at collaboration and community, the power of peer-to-peer learning, the whole concept of the Monitor Farm programme, and by extension, those management groups. And then also a little bit about how we build trust amongst our team, amongst that group, and how we increase resilience in both farming and the communities around it. Welcome back everyone to, Series 4 of Field Talk, the Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Today, we're heading to Banff and Buchan and we're going to be speaking to Becky MacAngus. Becky, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm wonderful, thank you very much. Lovely sunny day up here today, which is unusual for this time of year.
Becky, here on the podcast, it's always good when someone comes on to just get a bit of background as to who a guest is, what you're doing, what your role is, I guess, and what the connection with farming is itself.
Yeah, okay, no worries. So I work in agriculture, so I am currently the marketing manager at Norvite Animal Nutrition. Previous to working in agriculture, I worked in energy. Previous to that, I lived down in Lancashire, so it was a relocation up here, and then worked in energy and now work in agriculture. And I would say that I really enjoy, so I've had horses from being a very young age. My husband came from farming background, so we moved up here and had the opportunity to take on some land and have a small farm. It was kind of a best fit. So we've always loved farming, the outdoors, and agriculture is kind of a huge passion of mine, along with the horses as well. So I got involved with the Monitor Farm because I also worked with the Scottish Organic Producers Association, and the Banff and Buchan Monitor Farm that we're going to be talking about today, which is Bruce Irvin's, was organic when he first started. So that was kind of a fit for me, and I went in there as kind of an organic representative, and I've stayed on. I started off just as a part of the management group, and then after a couple of years, the chairperson, Peter Oosterhoff, was stepping down, and I took on the role of chairperson for the management group. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
And quite a shift from Lancashire, it must be said. So with a focus, yeah, definitely, with a focus on sort of Banff and Buchan, what does farming look like in that part of the world? Is there any challenges that maybe jump out there that don't in other places, or is it relatively similar to a lot of the country?
I would say there's always, the same challenges farmers have countrywide, which is the biggest one is the weather. It's the thing that they always talk about, no matter what the day is, always the weather. However, the farm at Bruce's is quite different in terms of its land makeup. So it's very sandy because it's very coastal. So it's something that I hadn't really come across before I started working with the management group there. So there's quite a lot of differences in terms of, how you manage a year like we've had, very dry, and that can cause its own issues. There's quite a lot of people, especially here, at home. I'm not that far away from the farm, at Bruce's, but actually we had quite a lot of grass. We were doing really well, but that's because our land holds water a lot better than his does, and the grass grew a lot better. Whereas up there, it's so dry and sandy that brings its own challenges. So I think whatever area you are in the country, that is always a huge thing that you have to take into consideration. You can't plan for weather. That's one thing. You could be planning now for what you're going to do next year, next spring, next summer, in terms of breeding your animals, looking at genetics and all that kind of thing. But you cannot plan for the weather. So I think you have to, as a farmer, you have to be so adaptable and you really have to, try and take those little wins when they come and really, take advantage of as many opportunities as you can. So,
Do you know, you raise a good point there, actually. When we think of the Monitor Farm program, bang smack in the middle of that three-letter acronym is the word farm. It's probably easy to assume that certainly monitor farmers are going to obviously be farmers, but in that management group, that's going to solely be farmers as well. But you've sort of said you've came from energy. You're still obviously in the agricultural sector with Norvite there and previously SOPA. Is it quite open to people not solely farming, still in the sector, but not directly involved?
yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the really good things about the group that we have. It's not all farmers. So my technical director at Norvite, David McClelland, he's also on the group. He's not a farmer either, but he has a huge, huge experience in nutrition. He's worked at Norvite for, I'm gonna get this wrong, probably well, it's probably about 25 years. I think it's a long time. He does, he was from a farming background in Ireland, so he grew up on a farm, but he doesn't have a farm here. So, but he obviously does with farmers on a daily basis. So, we do have other people on the management group, and I think that's really important because you can then look at a business from a different side. So you can look at, a farm as a business and see it as a business rather than just a lifestyle. Farmers are in it every single day. They live it, they work it, they breathe it. However, if somebody like that with a business head on looking from the outside in, I think is always a really good perspective to have. And maybe comes up with ideas that aren't sometimes thought about or things that you think, oh, actually, we hadn't considered that from that point of view. So I think it is really important to have a dynamic, diverse group of people. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we definitely have.
It sounds like a weird question, I understand, but you what diversity is there? You know, you've got farmers. What other types of backgrounds is there?
So we've got farmers, we've got business people, we've got, I suppose, there's a real mixture of personalities and backgrounds. I think most of the other people that are on the group are farmers. I don't think, oh no, sorry, as an accountant as well.
Very
So
useful.
yeah, it's really, really, really good. The other thing is we've just had another lady join the group, which is fantastic because I have been the only woman on the group for the last few years. So it's really nice to see that as well because I think, we think differently. We bring different perspectives, and especially because she's farming as well, she'll have her own challenges, and bring a different perspective on that as well. So yeah, it's really good.
And I'm right in saying your chair, yes?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Peter Oosterhoff, who was the chairperson before me, said, he wanted to give somebody else a chance. So I put my hand up and said, from a personal development point of view, from a point of view of being able to support Bruce and try and put myself out there a bit more. I think sometimes in life it's easy to just stay in your lane and your comfort zone, whereas I try and push myself sometimes. So it was a big thing for me because we're sometimes walking into a room full of farmers that are looking at you like this woman has no clue what she's talking about. Can be quite intimidating, but I think we're doing all right.
So in that role, I mean, we've touched on Becky. We've touched on the last three series on the management groups. We've had people to talk about the importance of them and whatnot, but sort of a real focus on them as we're doing here with yourself is really valuable because it seems like that maybe the outward perception is you've got the monitor farmers and then there's some people that come along to those events, but there's an actual group there, and you're talking about the sort of the the diversity of background business, I guess, that are involved there. So how how is that management group operating? Is it a monthly, a quarterly thing? Is it a meeting? Do you have a theme? How do they actually work each event?
Yeah, so we have management group meetings. And at those meetings, they are closed meetings, so it's just the management group members that are invited to those meetings. And we basically sit down and discuss maybe events that have happened in the past, events that we want to run in the future, things that Bruce is doing within his business that maybe have changed, or things that he wants advice on, things that planning for maybe the next 6 months. So a couple of examples of things that we talk about are example now we would be at the next management meeting we'll be talking about events that we're going to maybe run at the beginning of next year. So is there anything that anybody on the management group thinks would be a good idea to bring other people, outside people along, and let them see what's happening. So a couple of examples of that in the past would be kind of body condition scoring in cattle. We've done accountancy workshops, and so there's a huge variety of things, and that just gives people that aren't within that management group an opportunity to come along and to learn more, not necessarily just about what Bruce is doing on his farm, but we use Bruce's farm as an example at those meetings. And obviously, if we're doing body condition scoring, we use cattle and things like that. So it gives, the wider agricultural industry a chance to come and see and learn. And, knowledge exchange is really important in my eyes. So it's really, really good to get people along to those. So that's kind of the management group meetings. And we've done all sorts of other things. So we talk about, Bruce's, so we've got vets on the management group as well. So we talk about kind of planning for worming and things like that. So I remember when we first started, we sat down. It was quite a hard meeting, actually. I remember, and I did feel for Bruce at the end of it, thinking, crikey, we've just grilled him. But really, that first meeting was very much, right, what are your issues? What do you want to change? What do you want to achieve? And where do you want to go? And I think the management group has helped him to kind of keep on track with that. I mean, it's changed a lot, I would say. If you ask Bruce, go back 2 years, he probably didn't think he would be in the place he's in now. But at the same time, it's really good to have a group of people that kind of help and steer, but also keep you on track in terms of what you said you wanted to achieve 2 years ago. So it's a really good group of people.
It does give that vibe, you got to have a bit of a thick skin to be the monitor
Yeah.
farmer, I would say, but very much going to benefit from it because it's that feel in this sector. We hate doing it, don't we? We don't want to say anything really. We want to keep it all sort of close to our chest. We're all quite guilty of it. But if you're able to put yourself out there and be open to nutritionists, vets, other farmers, whoever, to hear their opinion, it's always going to. Well, I assume that's normally going to be of benefit, and I think collaboration and collaborating and all that are words that are everywhere at the minute. This whole group is based on collaboration. So how much is it accelerating progress, accelerating innovation with the management group?
I would say hugely. So, especially being within the management group from the start, I have noticed a huge shift in quite a few members of the group, and how much at the start they would just come and sit and listen, and how much now they contribute in terms of speaking up and giving their opinion. And I think that's so valuable, even just to have, that safe space for people to feel like their opinion is valued. Um, and yeah, it's really, really interesting. And I would say to Bruce, huge credit to him, because he has been so open throughout this whole process, even with his finances and everything really. And I think that has really helped him. And it's helped us be able to encourage him and, talk to him about where he might be having sticking points, and really try and progress things. So yeah, huge, huge credit to him and his family, definitely.
That curiosity part is something you wish you could sort of chuck in a bottle and sell because when people have it, they gain from it massively. But you're talking about folk that have came out the sort of shell as time goes on.
Yeah.
Is there ways as a group you encourage that, or is that just happens over time? How does that present
I
itself, I guess?
think both really. I think the fact that we've now been doing this for 3 years, you get a lot more comfortable with people. I remember that first meeting, you all go in and kind of sit in silence and just listen to the person that's speaking to you, and don't really know what to say. But as things progress and you kind of get to know the people a little bit more, you get to know their businesses and what they're doing and how they're doing it. it means that they can, they can speak up, and they also have, most of the people on the management group have, um, say similar businesses to Bruce in terms of, they run varied enterprises, so they can then come along and share their experiences. And yeah, I think that is so important. I think sitting down and speaking and being willing to speak and listen is so important in this industry because we don't do it enough. It's very easy, especially at this time of year, to go inside after a long, hard day in the wind and the rain and just sit and think, I'm just going to chill tonight. But actually going out and being at these meetings, you can actually, sometimes see my day isn't as bad as that person. So I really have nothing to complain about, and it is encouraging in its own way in terms of, yeah, just speaking to other people. I think it's really good.
The I sort of, I guess I asked you somewhat like this, Becky, but maybe a wee bit more focused. Maybe asked the wrong question at the start. To fair, you sort of said roughly what farming's like and sort of what the majority of the area is like. But is it primarily livestock systems? Is there some arable? Are people in the management group? You said varied enterprises there. Are they diversifying their businesses?
So within, I would say, around where I am, especially in Banff and Buchan, it's mainly livestock, but there is, a good amount of arable land as well. There's a good amount of arable farmers, but there is a lot of livestock where we are. I think the land lends itself to that because it can be so varied from one area to the next. And quite hilly in areas as well. So it is very varied, but there is, livestock is probably a prime thing. And mainly people would grow their crops to feed their livestock. Whereas, in other areas of the country, it would be growing crops to sell for malting and that kind of thing. Whereas some people would be lucky to be able to do that around here, but quite the majority would be feed barley and things like that. So yeah.
And is it like a touristic area, or is there hospitality, retail sort of things?
So Banff and Buchan is kind of out in sticks.
Okay.
If you want to get to, kind of Aberdeen would be your closest city for retail and shopping and things like that. You would be probably a good hour and 10 to get there. And there isn't any rail links from here. So if you wanted to
Okay.
get public transport, you'd be on a bus. So yeah, it is quite rural. But that's one of the reasons I love it, to be honest with you.
Had no way. Had no way.
No, yeah, yeah. So no, it's in terms of tourism, I would say if you have diversifications on your farm around here, it's kind of Airbnbs, bed and breakfasts,
Yeah.
that kind of thing for people coming up visiting. Coastal areas get quite a lot of visitors each year. Like Bruce is kind of maybe a little bit where the Monarch Farm is a little bit away from that, but not far away from him would be kind of Banff, Port Soy, Cullen, those kind of areas. They're quite well um, versed in the tourism sector. But around where the farm is, it is very rural and yeah, it's country life at its best for sure.
What we're all used to, isn't it? It's what
Yeah.
so I sometimes go to cities and I'm like, oh, I can do this. And then I spend like 4 days and I'm like, I couldn't do this.
Get me home.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, are people involved that have farms at home able to bring their challenges not only to sort of contribute to the group, but also to try and gain something to take home to their farm? Are they taking findings back to their own place as well?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have brought, ideas back to, talk about at home, but also at work as well. There's feedback to the management to say, look, this is what farmers are struggling with this year, and this is what we need to think about, and this is the kind of things that, we need to be helping them out with. But also, I would say other people on the management group definitely bring their ideas. I mean, Bruce has very much embraced the Monitor Farm journey as such, and he has taken on a chicken unit. So he's put up a shed, been through the whole process, and he's now got a fully functioning egg unit. at his farm, and I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't for Ian Chapman, who's on our management group from Farmley, encouraging that and giving him the support and the assistance and the advice on it all as well. So that is one really good example of quite a big idea being brought forward from one of the management group members to Bruce. So but it also works. It works the other way for sure. I think especially from the meetings where we kind of do the more practical side of learning, kind of more of the open meetings. We did, I think I mentioned before, some body condition scoring on cattle, and for sure I brought that home. And we've got Aberdeen Angus cattle pedigrees at home, and they outwinter. So it's really good to have that knowledge to be able to, you know, just eyeball your cow in the field and say, she's living out, she's got a calf on her. Is she going to be all right for the next 3 months out in the real harsh winter? We've not got much shelter here. It's pretty exposed, and just kind of making sure that she's, up to condition, if not a little bit over, to get her through the winter is a really, really useful tool to have. So I think I've certainly benefited from it. I'm sure other people have as well.
Putting on a chicken unit's quite a big change,
It
like
was a big, yeah.
notable. I mean, when I think of this again, because I've spoken to Bruce, I know that's the case. But when you think of the program, you think of, oh, maybe we're going to get a new handling system, maybe we're going to integrate a new form of grazing, which all are fantastic changes.
Yeah.
But that's a big change. So can you
Yeah.
walk us through, maybe not the intricacies, but walk us through how that happened? Ian's came along and that seed's been planted, I guess. And then how does that process go?
I think it's just a great opportunity. And, Farmley is literally just down the road from Bruce. So they could integrate that, Bruce's system into their, transport and all that kind of thing, quite easily. And from what I can gather, speaking to Bruce, and it's all worked quite well. And it's all obviously hasn't, nothing in terms of building a shed and getting in 30, I think it's 36,000 birds, or maybe even 38. Can't remember the exact number. That's never going to run to perfection, is it? However, I think um it's worked quite well, and I think Bruce will hopefully start to see some real benefits to his enterprise, because he can now, I was talking before about the fact that they have issues with drought and things up there if you have a dry year. Well, he's now going to have, all the hen muck and things like that to help with that situation in terms of fertilizing the ground. And, there's a lot of benefits that brings to Bruce's farm. But it's funny you mentioned about the fact that, you think about these monitor farms and they might put in a new handling system and things like that. He's done all of it. Bruce has done
Yeah.
everything. So it's really, really has been a great it's been great to watch, how much I would say the business has grown. I know he is having, thoughts about what he does in terms of his, maybe going back organic, but that might be something that we as a management group can help him think about for the future. So it's yeah, there's been lots of changes, but it's been really interesting, especially for me to watch and to learn from.
Is there ever a time, Becky, you're kind of touching on it there, I guess, with the organic side of things with Bruce's farm, that the management group is focused on X, and then maybe there's discussions over the next couple of meetings, and you think, you know what, let's maybe pivot that somewhat and go in a different direction, or is it quite set in the direction over the course of the 4 years from the start?
No, I would, it's very dynamic, and I would say that is the nature of farming. It has to be that way to be able to survive, because one year the beef price can be brilliant, the next year it can be, in the doldrums. Same with the sheep price, and there's so many variables. And I think that's one really nice thing about having a group of people in a room that, have the same sort of focus. They're very dynamic thinkers, and even now, our next management group meeting, I guess, will be looking at kind of spring next year and looking to, lambing and things like that, which seems mad to be talking about. But and we can look, especially through this process, because one thing that Bruce has been very good at is kind of embracing data capture. He's kind of at the point now where he's got almost too much data, but it means that we as a management group can maybe help him to decide what is the most important. And again, looking ahead, we can try and help him to pinpoint exactly what's gonna, be best for him in terms of lambing and calving next year and, what he needs to focus on and things like that. So I would say, the group is very much thought year on year about the program and how to develop and how to help Bruce to achieve what he wants to achieve. Because ultimately, that's why we're there. We're not there for ourselves, although it's a great learning platform for us all. We're there to support Bruce through his monitor farm experience and, to help his business develop. So he's very, very willing to, listen to ideas, very open to develop in all sorts of different ways. And in terms of his business, knowledge, but also knowledge about livestock. And, nobody has all the answers, nobody knows everything. So it's really good to hear from a lot of different people with a lot of different experience, and be dynamic in that way as well about your, be dynamic with your thinking and all that kind of thing. So yeah. Good.
Can you give us some examples of some of the data that is there? What data
Oh,
has been
goodness.
gathered?
Yes. So one of them, he decided, well, I can't even remember exactly when it would have gone in, but one of the things that he decided to do as part of the Monarch Farm was try out the interactive boluses.
Hmm.
So these are, boluses that you put in your cattle and they, send information to your phone about how the animal is and what their, temperature is and all that kind of thing, and if they're experiencing any issues with inside the rumen and all that kind of thing. So Bruce decided to put those in, I want to say about 18 months ago now, I think. Um, but there has been a slight issue in that those boluses were developed mainly for dairy cattle. So dairy cattle are, in a shed most of the time. If not, they're not far away from the farm to come back to be milked. They're in at least twice a day, even if they're robotically milked. So those boluses were struggling over at Bruce's because all of his cattle are outwintered. So it struggles to get signal kind of over a hill, or, we've had to put in different, stations for the data to be collected and that kind of thing. So that has been really interesting for the company that provided the boluses to have feedback on that. But that gives you a lot of information. So there's that. There's all the information that comes from the chicken shed, which is, from what I can gather, a lot of
I could
information.
imagine it would be a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot more recording with EIDs. They're doing some genomics, work. I can't remember the zoetics. I think they were working with on the genomics. So there's been so many different things. And then we did the cattle scoring, which I think he also, is another data point that is being collected as well. So there has been a lot, and I'm sure I've probably missed out a few, but yeah. I think from when I was speaking to him last, there was something like 13 different sets of data I think he was collecting. So it's now, up to him and to us as a group to help him to make sense of really what is it that we need from that.
Do you know it's yeah, it's that whole concept of we always hear about it at the minute, don't we? It's data, 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 data,
Mhm.
data, and it's fine and it's really valuable. And it's then how do you turn that into insights to work with
Yeah.
and whatever I
It's
think
only
is
valuable if can get something from it.
yeah,
It's just numbers if you don't get anything from it. So yeah, it's challenging.
which only gives me like a sore head when it's just
Yeah.
just the numbers. To be fair, what's so far? You're three-quarters of the way there. I'm guessing across all monitor farms and monitor farm groups alongside them, you sort of know where you're going to be roughly at that 4 year point now because you're the majority of the way through. But what's been the best thing for you as someone in that management group?
I would say the learnings that I've got from it, the experience of people coming along and sharing their personal experiences from their own enterprises has been quite amazing. I mean, I don't have a huge enterprise at home, but one day we hope to grow and, although we both work full time, it would be nice to be able to have a well-run small unit that can run well alongside, everything else that we do. So I think learnings that I've taken um, from not just Bruce and his example and his farm, but from all the other people that have come along and, spoken openly about their experiences and what works well for them and what doesn't work for them has been the most valuable thing. There is, most of the people I would say on the group would be willing to share their own personal stories and, very openly, which I think is quite an amazing thing. Because from my experience historically, that's not what farmers do. They're quite closed doors. Although they like a good blather. Sharing information, especially as openly and honestly and kind of as deeply as Bruce has about, especially open up and about finances. That's not something that you would see very often. So I have really appreciated that and the help from everybody else.
The I always quite like to ask people that have done a program or part way through a program, what's the biggest change or whatever that you've seen now that obviously that is putting in 36,000 hens. But
Yeah.
if you were to look at Bruce and having got to know him over the last few years, what's the biggest change you've seen in Bruce as a person and also as a farmer?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is his ability to um, talk and not present, but talk about, at these open meetings that we have, Bruce would kind of stand up at the start and do a welcome and this is why we're here and this is where we're at, at the moment. I would say the first time he did that, he was extremely nervous, and as anybody would be, but now he's kind of really grown as a person, I think maybe in his confidence as well. I mean, he might disagree, but I think, from my point of view, I would see that as one of the real changes and advantages. And I think he's been very willing to listen to other people's opinions, and that's really helped him in terms of his business as well. Um, Another big change, I would say, in terms of the business, as well as, putting in the hen shed, is um, the condition in his beasts. His I think one of the things he did struggle with the first year we were there, and he quite openly admitted it, that his ewes maybe came into lambing on the leaner side, and there was some that he wasn't, kind of quite happy with and things like that. And I would say you would see a massive difference in a 3-year period in terms of the condition in his cattle and his sheep. So yeah, it was really nice to see that it's had such a positive impact.
And it's great to look back on that, that sort of 3 years in so far. What about there's still 50 weeks left? There's still just less
Mm.
than a year left. What's is there anything in the pipeline? What's the sort of the plan for the remaining year?
Yeah, so it's one thing that we kind of have touched on, but haven't really nailed down in terms of what we're doing in kind of like the meetings and things like that coming up. But I think the biggest thing this year has obviously been putting in the shed with the chickens, and I think trying to perfect that a little bit more, making the system, work for itself, because quite a lot of, which I didn't know a few months ago, quite a lot of things in units like that is automated. Unless you get it exactly right and things spot on for the hens, they just don't produce as well as they should do. So I think perfecting things like that would probably be one of the things that Bruce will be focusing on. I think definitely he had a great year last year with his lambing, and also, he had something ridiculous like 2% losses between lamb and weaning, which was, yeah, I might not have that number exactly right, but it was really like surprisingly good. Um, so I think he's doing really well with that side of his enterprise. I think, oh, that was the other thing. When we first started, he had a massive long calving period, like ridiculous, like 10 weeks and 10 weeks. It was crazy. And one thing that we all said right at the start was, that needs to change, because you need to be able to have time for yourself and, have time with your family and things like that. And you're not just not letting, there just isn't the ability to do that when you're constantly having to be on alert for calving. So one of the things he did do was take his calving periods right down, and I think that's made a big difference. So I think we'll probably go back and revisit some of the stuff that we mentioned at the start and said that we, should be looked at the start, really have a look at how that's impacted the business in terms of, you know, profitability, in terms of time management and things like that. Because at the end of the day, farming isn't just a business, it's a lifestyle, but you do need to have other things outside of that. Bruce has got a lovely family and spending time with them is important to him. I know that he's told me that in the past. So, you know, go and have a look back at what we said at the start. And one of the biggest things for Bruce was time management. Have we managed to have a look at that and have we managed to make a difference? And I think maybe going through each aspect of the business and doing that for each aspect of the business would be really useful. So I think that's something we'll focus on.
One thing that's interesting to me, Becky, and I guess it's not really part of what you need to do because these management groups run alongside the monitor farm for their duration, which is 4 years. Is there is there progression to that? Is there scope to keep this management group going, or certainly still having contact? And can you keep that what do you say, that momentum going once the program's finished, or does it kind of stop with the program?
I don't know really, to be honest with you. I think it would be lovely to keep in touch with everyone, but I think the Monitor Farm program gives people a reason to come out and to, a focus on our business. And I think that is really important. That's one of the unique things about this program. And I'm sad to say, but I don't think it would keep going.
Yeah.
Bruce, obviously, there's quite a lot of people on that management group that Bruce would keep in contact with anyway, because quite a lot of local farmers that he works with on a daily basis, which is great. And, I'm sure that they will keep in touch and things like that. But from uh, a perspective in terms of looking at a business and working with a business, I don't think it would continue. We would love to have another monitor farm around here. I think it would be great to have another one to be involved in, but that's not in our say so. But it's yeah, hopefully we'd be able to um, keep the group alive, but I'm not sure.
Be nice. It'd be nice.
It would,
And
it would.
just I guess draw the episode to a close. If we were to ask you as as chair of one of the management groups, Becky, to those listening where there's a year left. First off, of the current program, whether you're in Banff and Buchan or you're in Ayrshire, it doesn't matter. Uh, what would you say to them if they were thinking, do you know what, I might turn up to this management group for the last year, or when it's starting again for the next 4 years next year? What would you say to someone debating going
Yeah,
along?
no, it's a good question. I would 100% say get involved. It's some people would say it's a commitment. I wouldn't say it's any more of a commitment than going, and like people would do in a workplace and doing kind of continual professional development. It's really important, I think, to get involved in these things and to look at different businesses and the way that people do things because everybody's business is completely different. Give yourself the opportunity to learn and to grow. Nobody has all the answers. So, if you have the opportunity to be able to just go along to a meeting or get in touch with the local facilitator. Peter, our facilitator, is brilliant. Get in touch with him and say, I've been thinking about coming along. Would it be okay if I joined in? Even now, anybody's welcome. The management group meetings are more of a closed group. However, if you get in touch with a local facilitator, they wouldn't say no to you coming along and you could definitely get involved. And there's no reason, still a whole year left and it's a whole farming calendar left. So there's no reason why you can't get involved now. And I would say, just do it. You're not going to lose out. The only thing you're giving up is your time. And if that means that you come away with three different insights at every meeting, then that's absolutely brilliant. If you come away with one, it's brilliant. So, and anyone that I would say that's thinking of either applying to be a monitor farm in the future if it continues, or wanting to be on a management, group in the future, I would say the management group, just do it. You're not going to lose out at all. You're only going to learn. And in terms of anybody thinking about applying to be a monitor farmer, is if you're going to do it, go into it with a thought in your head that I'm going to have to put everything out on the table and be very, very open and willing to ideas and to change and for your business to change and develop as well. But I think anybody that would be applying would be willing for that anyway. But I'd say if you're a very closed book, it's but maybe not the program for you.
You're going to have to learn to open up quite a bit
Yeah,
if you are,
yeah, exactly.
for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big change required. Well,
Yeah.
Becky, thank you very much. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Not at all. Been good fun. And for those of you listening, that's been, well, the first episode of Series 4, where we're going to look at those management groups and the people affiliated with the Monitor Farm programme around those farmers who we already covered in Season 1. So if you're interested in the Monitor Farm group, this has probably been a great episode for you, and maybe you will even look at being involved in chairing one of those groups and seeing how you can sort of lead them forward. Thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you for the next one. See you then.
Thanks for tuning in to the Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Don't forget to click subscribe wherever you get your podcast from for more episodes as we continue to dive into the stories from our Monitor Farms. If you want to stay updated with our latest news and events, please visit the Monitor Farm Scotland website and follow us on social media for more updates and keep in the know about what our farms are getting up to. Monitor Farm Scotland is funded by Scottish Government and managed by Quality Meat Scotland and AHDB.